has a lot of good stuff in it.
It does, and it's sort of, a lot of it doesn't apply.
Court hearing.
I thought you were on there.
Mics are hot.
Nope.
Turn your mic off.
I guess we're starting.
Oh,
It is 2:00. Thank you for all of you who've dialed in to listen and all of those present in the room for attending today's August 6th Plant and Equipment Committee meeting. Kicking right off at 2:00 sharp. Do we have any public or committee comments before we get into the meat of the agenda?
We have nobody.
Okay, seeing no committee comments, we'll go to item number. I did. I kind of got a, yeah.
We don't want it.
We certainly don't. Drinking water administrator program, request for qualifications. Who's owns this?
I'll start this discussion and turn it over to Renee. So, as you know, Inyukern has some problems, and the LAFCO and the state need to make a decision about their way ahead pursuant to the grand jury findings. We don't know what they're going to do. We know that we're going to sit back and await the decision of the state and LAFCO. However, one of the possible outcomes is that they will merge our districts together or have us become an administrator. And so there's a number of paths that could take. We could administer, sort of oversee their operations for some period of time, and it could be taken back over by them or by somebody else, or we could administer their stuff at some point and ultimately merge with our district, or we could not be an administrator at all. However, we did tell the state, since that decision is before them, that we would look at the process to become qualified to be an administrator of a district that has been sort of taken over by the state. And Renee, can you give us a quick update on the progress?
Well, one of the reasons I put this on the agenda is because I wanted the board to kind of realize what is expected when we become an administrator and what the process is. So did include in the handout this handbook. So when you get a chance, you can take a look at it. Tells you what, the purpose of the program is, what your qualifications are and your obligations, which is important when you become an administrator, as far as holding public meetings, putting together a community accountability and engagement plan, providing regular updates, putting together a post-administrator service plan for whoever you administer. So there's certain obligations that the district would be taking on if we do this, and we would have to put together a statement of qualifications in response to the drinking water administrator program's request for qualifications. So that's a different document I didn't include, but we would have to put down what our skills are in the categories of managerial, administrative, technical, operational, and legal support, and explain in each category how we're qualified to be an administrator in all those different categories. So it is a little bit of an undertaking to do this and apply for it. And I just want to make sure that the board is on board to say in doing this. So open for discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm assuming, since we are a viable water district as we speak, that adhering to or.
Yeah, I don't think we would have trouble qualifying.
Right, I think-
That's more of, I think, in my discussions with the regulators, that's really, oftentimes contractors do this. So like I think
okay.
Provost and Pritchard was the contractor for Keeler, you know, so like, so if you're a contractor and you're not running a water district currently, you know, well, what is who's your legal review? Who's your, you know, what's your operational experience? So I think for us, that would be just kind of checking the boxes, but that's, you know, that's what we told them we'd do.
But there is some paperwork burden on staff to
There is.
put together this package, and I guess I'd be interested, I think the board will probably be interested next week to get a feel for, you know, how much of a burden is that? Is this a couple of weeks burden? Is this a couple of months? Is it, we don't need that right now, but just something to be thinking about that you might get challenged next Monday.
Yeah, and it would be, you know, so I don't think the application process and qualifying is a tremendous burden, but if we were actually to become an administrator, that would be a significant burden. And it would be, I believe, Renee, does the state give us compensation monetarily if we become an administrator? I believe that's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
So I don't know if we would have to hire somebody new to do that, or we would need to, you know, have additional staff. I think if we come and become an administrator, do the employees of the current CSD become our employees as well? Is that one of the things that occurs?
You know, that I'm not sure. I don't think we can get rid of their employees, but
Yeah,
we
I
would
remember them-
probably have, you know,
I
oversight
remember
of
them
them,
saying
yeah.
that you can't just necessarily get rid of their employees. So there's a number of things, you know, and then,
BGM high roll and those kinds of,
yeah, so yeah, so it's not an insignificant amount of work, especially, you know, since you have to ensure they're compliant and, you know, you're going to have to help administer and get contracts awarded to fix whatever problems are done and then deal with the state on advocating for money and what projects need to be done. And yeah, so I think it would be a pretty significant amount of work. So I wouldn't want to underestimate that at all.
okay. I think the board will probably want to have,
I know the board will want to ask what the scope
Yeah.
of our involvement, and then the work that we're putting on our staff that we're currently not doing, and certainly reimbursement would be very important. We can't legally have our current ratepayers pay for staff doing work in Yale Kern. So there are a number of things. Am I correct that if we were to consolidate with them, there would be no issue with regard to this administration issue?
Well,
right?
the process, I think you'd probably end up being an administrator for, I'm guessing a few years before
Okay,
there
for
was ever a
transition.
consolidation. So that's why I say, when you're the administrator, you know, the outcomes after the administrator. So like when Provost and Pritchard was the administrator up in Keeler, at the end of that process, they were seeking someone to become the full-time operator. They asked us if we would do it, and we declined because of just the physical distance between us and them. And, but there's a point where the administrator either, you know, like in our case, we could become the operator and consolidate, or we could not. We could get their system up to speed and they could turn it back over to their own board at some point in time
Yeah.
when they're,
Mhm.
you know,
Well,
those
of
things
course,
are,
you know, there's a big issue there in my mind that the state water board they seem to be very definitive about they can't get a grant if they don't consolidate. And in my mind, they shouldn't be making the decision to consolidate or not consolidate right now. I mean, it's kind of premature for them to be deciding at this point in sort of a crisis if they should be consolidating. And so the whole issue of grant money versus loan money, you know, is sort of up in the air. By the way, I'm perfectly happy to help our neighbors if we can help them and it doesn't put an undue burden on our staff. But we do have to be careful and I also don't want, as we've, I think, all stated to it in your Kern, to think that we're trying to push ourselves on them.
Yeah.
And I think lastly, what I want to make sure is that the State Water Board is in favor of us doing this thing, filling out the paperwork, and they're supportive before we start spending a lot of time even getting involved. Because if they're not in favor of it, then we're just wasting our time and our money and our resources.
you know, another dimension of that is if the LAFCO and the state reviewing the grand jury recommendations and observations come back and say, you know, they really need to consolidate and they put a lot of pressure on us to consolidate, you know, is there any avenue for us to say, nah, no thanks? Because it just seems like there may be a liability there because they are our neighbors. We all live in the same valley. We all have the same aquifer.
So I'll say this, I think my read of the regulation says that the LAFCO and the State Water Board have the authority to force a consolidation. I think that they are very recalcitrant to ever use that. I think that is almost a measure of last resort for them. If the board chose to say, we don't want to do this, I think they would respect that. I think they would, I mean, Jason and Renee, you guys can chime in here, but I don't know that I've ever seen what I would call a forced consolidation. Mostly it's, they try to get people to sort of, they might say, yeah, we want you to do it. And we've sort of told the state and the LAFCO folks that we will go down this path if you tell us we have to, so to speak. You know, that's kind of our approach, because we don't want to be seen as trying to go and now, I don't think we want to take on this extra task and all this extra work, but you know, in the world of, you know, it could be somewhat forced upon us. We need to be prepared.
I wouldn't call it a
You know,
forced consolidation, but I believe that the state will require things of in your current CSD that they may not be able to comply with. And that may put us in a position where we are forced, someone is forced to be the administrator, and we are the best prepared to do so.
Yeah. I think we've said we will help where we can. If the administrator path is the way to go, we'd really rather see them, if we can, is help them, pull them up by the bootstraps, so to speak, and get themselves back online. But I'm not sure if that's going to be possible, so.
Well,
Consolidation theme were to carry forward. It seems to me we'd need to be better prepared to understand what the cost of a consolidation would be. Do we have a good survey or a good feeling for what
No,
is not working, what is working?
the regulators have actually approached us and asked us what was our opinion of the things that would need to be fixed out in Inyo Kern. And we sat down and put together sort of a list, and we couldn't necessarily put a price to it, but we had some very obvious deficiencies of things that would need to be done.
right.
And so we've tried to help the state out and just sort of say, hey, these are things that we think, obviously their wells need to be operational. They only have one well. It would certainly be better if they had two wells or a second source of water.
Yeah.
Their tank needs to be coated, so we gave them a bunch of technical stuff. Meters need to be operational and working, and the installation of an AMI system would be very beneficial given their small staff size, so we gave them a large list of things that we thought, would be at least, and that was almost more of a,
Well, I hope the
argument
state
point.
understands that it's the state's responsibility to convince Inyo Kern that they need to consolidate if that's what they come up with. And because I don't want us to be the ones that are forcing it. So I mean,
Well, and
because they are our neighbors, we want to help them, but we don't want to force our help on them.
yeah, so in a good move by them, the Inyo Kern CSD has hired a lawyer. He's an acquaintance of our Jim Worth, our lawyer. They know each other, at least they've said they do. And so they're getting, they're working with their own legal team at this point in time to help decide their own future. And,
Okay.
my general observation is when we go out there, we got a call about a meter that they might need some help with. And we went out there, and it appears they're trying to work towards righting the ship, so to speak. And we hope that works.
No. One last thing, and then I'll get off this because I know we don't have a lot of time. Have you by any chance talked to Shannon Grove personally rather than her staff about, does she support grant funding for Inyo Kern? The state board has come out pretty strong and say, no, there's no grant funding unless you consolidate. But I've spent a little time looking through the internet, and I can't find anything in there that says that disadvantaged communities can't get grant funding unless they consolidate. So, Shannon Grove's other than the county officer, is the only really elected official that Inyo Kern has to help them.
Yeah, I've been hesitant to do that. I'm generally hesitant to reach out to higher level political officials without at least having the board say that'd be a good idea. If the board would like me to, that's fine. I felt that might be a bit of an overreach in the world where we don't want to be perceived as, trying to take them over. So I know that I've given, Shannon Grove's point of contact information to some of her representatives, to the general manager out at the CSD, and she has reached out to Shannon Grove, and I assume their legal team can reach out and find out about those options. And so we're doing our best to just say, we're here if it has to be done, and we're qualified to be an administrator if that has to be done, but we don't want to get too deep into the
Well,
weeds about.
in my mind, of all the state officials that are elected, she's the obvious one that should be helping them. So
Okay.
I'm hoping that they actually do push that.
Okay.
So it'd be nice to find, because there's let's face it, the state water board, they're bureaucrats, none of those are elected.
Mhm.
So having them tell us that there's no grant money when, we're also told that there's no grant money for us because all the grant money's being given to areas like Inukurd, doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree, it's an important point, but it's probably a little off topic for what we're here for today regarding the administration program. But I think you and I ought to bring these points up next Monday. And make sure, I'll talk with the admin exec meeting tomorrow to make sure we've put this on the agenda.
Yeah.
So we can have a little dialogue about it.
We have
And
put
a
it,
status
It's already on.
it's
it?
on the agenda.
Okay.
I'll be looking for direction, and George and I are looking for direction on whether the board wants us to go ahead and submit a statement of qualifications for
Well, we've
the
already
administrative program.
started, right? I mean, we've already kind of started with the, or not.
I've only gathered the information in the list of what we have to submit. I have not actually started creating
okay.
creating the statement of qualifications yet.
I'd recommend maybe just
good.
hold until
Yeah.
we have the meeting Monday, and I think the board will support that, but
Okay.
no sense getting ahead of them and then finding out.
Yep.
There's no interest.
Well, thank you.
Item number 4, Rademacher Way Main Line Extension. Who has this, Jewel?
All right, this is the notice of exemption, and as you know, we've been working with the GA on this project and having regular meetings. We had one this morning. We're gonna go ahead and file the notice of exemption. We're gonna do a phase 1 and probably a phase 2 for this project. Phase 1 being the one, but we already have plans for, which is about 1,000 feet of 8-inch pipe that'll bring in 2 connections out there. The district had already approved these plans a couple years ago, and Mr. Cordell's company was going to put it in before he passed away. So we've agreed, we're working on, I know legal is working on an agreement with the GA. Not going to have that this month, probably next month for you to take a look at. That will fund all of our costs for this. We'll be using district staff to do the installation. The second half of this project would be continuing down Rademacher Way and then looping around to Gordon Street. That's because some of the wells, or at least one well that is serving customers, future customers on Rademacher, also serves people on Gordon. So the GA wants to be sure that that people can get off of that well, everybody who needs to get off that well, and get it destroyed, because the grant they have will also cover well destruction. So it will also cover our connection fees, our capital facility fee that needs to be paid. The one thing it's not going to be covered is what we call a service changeover, which is the connection from the home to the meter. So they're working on getting another organization to cover those costs, the same one that was helping Inukurn CSD out when their well went down. So there's a way to do it. So this is just approval for us to file the notice of exemption for that project.
So there are at this point no roadblocks that we know of that's going to keep us from getting this done.
Not that we can see.
Okay,
No.
so we're kind of,
Unless the GA and the district can't come to an agreement on it. But yeah, other than that, we don't see any roadblock for it going forward.
okay,
I'm glad we're getting along with the GA on this.
yeah. Now, my understanding that our legal staff is doing the legal issues, is that correct?
That's correct. Jim Worth is taking, I believe we had an agreement to fund the GA in the past, and they're sort of taking that one and using that as a template to fashion this funding agreement. So Jim's working on it and it's gonna move forward. You know,
When I
Good.
spoke to Phil Hall this morning, he was expecting to get it in the next couple days from Jim.
okay.
We have a rough estimate for when this will be complete?
Oh, gosh. We probably won't start it until
Yeah, there's some,
November-ish timeframe.
Okay.
Jason, you want to elaborate on sort of the technical issues that are going to come, that we want to address so that we don't jeopardize our current system?
Right, so where Rademacher is located is right off of Springer, which is where the bottleneck is. So we don't want to do anything right now that would jeopardize taking that line out of commission. That's still one of the main thoroughfares to get to the east side of the valley. So we're looking to do this in the cooler months when we can take that line down, put some new 16-inch pipeline in the ground, throw a T in, and then run that pipe north. If you're looking for a time frame about how long it would take to do everything, maybe a month.
Okay, once you get all that
Mhm.
in place.
Once you get started.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we're gonna try to have the northwest pipeline completed before then, or is that important?
It,
or-
it may be.
Could be completed right around the same time.
It's coming up.
Okay, and you say you need something from us today?
Just a recommendation to the board to approve filing the notice of exemption.
I'll make that recommendation. Do you need a second? You
As long as Stan agrees.
Get a recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, item 5, lead service line inventory.
All right. This
Lead
is,
service.
this
line-
is lead. Yes. We love the English language, don't we? Could be lead, could be lead. All right. So you may or may not be aware that all public water systems all over the country, we have, what is the town of Michigan to thank?
Flint?
Flint, Michigan to thank for this. We have to inventory all of our service lines, not just between the main and the meter, but between the meter and the home, all by October 24th of this year. We've known about it for a couple years, and there's different ways to go about doing it. I mean, some water companies are actually going out and digging up in people's properties to figure out what it is. But what we did is narrow down how many lines we have to look at by first taking out those that were installed after 1986, when lead was banned from water fixtures and connections and all that stuff. So the rest, we are visiting each one, opening the meter box, taking a look at the construction of the material that's in there and making a note of that, putting it all in the state required spreadsheet. Staff is doing overtime on some weekends here and there to get this done. And we have about 8,000 done and about 4,000 to go. And don't expect to have any problems getting it done. And this is all going to be eventually uploaded into our GIS system too, and ability when we go to, we have to verify, even if it's, eventually we will have to have inventory everything, even if we assume that it's lead-free and it was built after 1986, they're still going to want an inventory. So eventually, little by little, we'll get everything into the system. So. Unfunded mandates.
Interesting, yeah.
And am I correct that we really haven't found any lead?
No,
Yeah, so.
we don't expect to.
We don't expect to find lead. We're not Flint, Michigan. We
Right.
don't feel like this is a public health, but if we find something, we'll report it, but,
Yeah. Nor do we
yeah.
have corrosive water either. So.
yeah, so, it is a requirement. We don't feel there's just so the public knows if they watch this meeting, we don't feel there's any sort of significant risk at all to the public in our water system.
And do we test for lead?
I was going to say, it's kind of a timely thing because every 3 years we do test, we're required to do 30 samples around our system for lead and copper. And we're in the midst of doing that this summer. So
Okay.
we rarely find lead. Sometimes we get hits for a small amount of copper. But yeah, last time we did it 3 years ago, there were no hits for lead at all.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I was
yeah.
guessing. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
mhm.
Thanks for that. My favorite topic, Indian Road or the Northwest Transmission Pipeline Replacement Project.
All right, this will be a little long, but as you've seen, if you've driven down there, that they have gotten started.
It's Jack Ranch Road.
And yes, they have been removing all the old pipe and they've got it, yeah, up to Primavera, where you see the Navy's tanks there on that north side there. That's how far they've gotten. And so they still have to get all the way down to Brady. But tomorrow, they're gonna start a second crew installing pipe, starting at Victor. So we'll have 2 crews going. They'll be finishing up the removal of the old, and they're gonna start installing the new. Their last schedule we got from them indicated beginning of October to get things done, but we've added some additional work to their plate. Cause when we were doing the removal and the potholing, found that some of the pipe, looked at the pipe that goes south on Victor to wells 30 and 31, might also need to be replaced. So they're going to be going south on Victor up to well 30 and replacing the pipe up to there. This is not going to be much of a district expense, and I'll explain why. So that is an additional 700 feet of pipeline, and the cost would be around $213,000. But they have submitted a request to use, and they've been testing the native soil out there so that they don't have to do imported sand and soil, around the pipe zone for backfill. And they're going to be giving us a credit of $200,000 to not have to do the imported sand. Additionally, there's going to be some more fusible PVC needed at the area at Jack's Ranch to go under there. So we're not disturbing all the asphalt and, the new stoplight and all the road and stuff that went through there. That is about $80,000 more, but we are getting another credit for not installing some of the blow-offs that we were going to, and each blow-off is $14,000. So we've eliminated 6 of the 10 blow-offs. So, and in the contract itself, there was a $100,000 line item for unforeseen conditions in the project. And if we hadn't had any unforeseen conditions, we would not have been charged that $100,000. So as it comes out, we're going to be eating into about 16,000 of that credit after all is said and done.
Nice. Go.
Yeah. So, and they're moving along good, moving along fast.
Do we anticipate that
issues.
maybe there'll be a need to go south on the east end of the line?
On Brady, no.
Nope, that's
Mm-mm.
okay.
Yeah, we're not going to be going down there. No. No, but Victor, we're gonna go at least to well 30. I think we did do some potholing, Jason, didn't we? Farther down on Victor? Between 30 and 31, or not yet?
We haven't gone any further.
No.
We did some samples up to 30,
Okay.
and right at the road was corroded, and then a little bit south of the road, it showed decent steel. So
Okay. So we're hoping
We're-
between
yeah.
30 and 31, we'll be good. But at least get us well 30, which is a good producer online, so.
Awesome. That's moving along quite well.
Yes.
I'm surprised how quickly they got the Jack Ranch Road.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
have quite the array of equipment out there, and they're moving along. I know, just so you know, the Navy had a couple of comments. They did a couple of spots where they damaged the fence, and we're gonna get information on that from the Navy, waiting for that. And when Navy was not happy about how high the pipes were stacked relative to the fence. We had to,
What the airplanes
blow-
run into when
Yeah.
they fly over it.
and so that.
I don't think they want people
I don't think it
climbing
was, I
on
think
the
it was more
pipes.
of they didn't want people hiding behind it, or,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
so.
Or
so-
maybe using those as a
To
leak.
get over the fence, yeah.
Yeah, so we've worked, our coordination with the Navy and the cooperation of the contractor has been really, really good in that respect. They've been very responsive, so I think that was great.
Do they actually have some blue pipe in the ground now, or is that
They're gonna start tomorrow.
starting tomorrow?
hmm Yeah, you can see they got it strung along
Yeah,
the
they
fence
were
out there.
Starting to, I hadn't seen them actually move the blue pipe since they first laid them out, but they were doing some work on it today. So
Okay.
I figured something was up.
Yep.
Are they going to put them together and then drop it in as one line, or are they going to do one section at a time?
Section at a time.
Section at a time.
Yeah, because it's not feasible there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I've seen some videos. I see some YouTubes on it, so I could,
On the fusible pipe?
when they line them all up and then just start it and push it in
Roll it
and
in.
let it just kind
I
of.
could.
they will do that with the fusible, is
Yes.
basically fuse it all together in one piece and then
Push it
roll
through.
it in.
Okay,
Push, pull, one of those.
nice. Well, thanks for that. It's exciting. Glad we're
Yeah,
seeing, making progress.
I noticed a couple articles, well-written articles in the newspapers lately, attributed, I think, to Jason,
Mhm.
So I want to thank him for well-written.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
doc, and any other member of the staff that helped Jason write those articles. So that all looked good. I think it's good public relations for us.
Yeah, the only thing I asked or curious about was there was no mention of the 3 million that we got from Shannon in the, is that because we're using that for the Springer piece or is it,
I would say that was probably just an oversight on our part. We will correct that.
might be something worth,
No, thank you for
as
the
we
reminder.
approach election season,
Yeah.
it might be something.
I
else you-
didn't ghostwrite it either.
Very
so.
good point.
Thank you for that. All of that. Item 7, Dune 3 and hometown water consolidations.
Okay. So last week we did get a draft agreement and like a legal counsel opinion document that needs to be looked at. They've asked us to look at, so I've forwarded that on to Jim and I'm gonna be taking a look at it. I haven't had a chance to yet. We should be getting something similar soon for Dune 3. Additionally, we're gonna be getting a proposal from GHD is a consulting engineering firm that's been working on the Dune Theme 3 project. So far, they've done pretty much all the work, all the engineering on the project, and we are going to want to use them for project management, inspections, handling the bidding process and all that stuff. So what will happen, we'll have an agreement with district and GHD, and then all of that is expenses that we pay is all reimbursable through the grants, all paid for basically by the grant. I don't think it's we pay first and get reimbursed, so. So that'll be something that's gonna be coming soon also to take a look at, so.
All right.
Hopefully in the next few months, we'll have a bunch of agreements to look at. Then there's also gonna be agreements between the district and the actual water systems themselves that have to be signed too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Thank
it's
you.
moving along.
Thank you for that.
Oh,
On a related topic, there's an additional $3 million that should be left over that the GA has after the Rademacher effort is complete.
Well, they're gonna do phase 2, remember?
And I guess, you know, what the GA was saying is let's just give the money to Stetson and let them use that for planning money. And my feeling is that's not the best way to use $3 million. If we've got a alternative, even if it's nothing more than extending some of our main lines, going south or west or however we're doing it, be a much better use of that $3 million. Because
Did you,
it'll just get burned up.
did you mention, Renee, that they were going to need that money for the loop to Gordon, the second phase?
Yeah, there's gonna be a phase 2 on this project, so some
Probably-
of the money will go to that.
Yeah, so that's
And that's
probably not gonna be over
The $3 million.
$300,000 or $400,000.
I'm sorry,
The total cost of that Rademacher, what's that gonna be, about 300,000 or 400,000 maybe?
we don't have that put together yet,
Okay.
but I can't imagine it's more than that.
I wouldn't think it's more. So there's probably gonna be 2.5 million left to Stan's point. There's gonna be
Yeah.
a significant amount of money left over. I would just say that we probably ought to hold and see what happens out in Inyokern, because if there was any really significant good use of that money,
Oh.
like in a consolidation world, if a consolidation were to occur, that might be a source of funds that the state could tap into if the GA were amenable. I don't know if they are. I'm not gonna say they are. I'm just saying that that's a possibility.
I also
then-
know that, I'm sorry to interrupt, I'm sorry, I also know the GA is looking at extending off of once we get Dune 3 installed, there's some other areas there to the south that they'd like to extend some water lines out to.
Well, they have to spend that within a certain amount of time, and I don't remember what their final date is, but what I really don't want to see is Stetson using it just for planning
Right.
Yeah.
and us ending up with, you know, nothing of any benefit.
Yeah.
Because we are specifically mentioned in that funding document that it should be people who it's, you know, used for consolidation with the water district. Don't know why that was worded that way, but that is the wording, I believe.
Well, I can tell you that we will advocate that those funds be spent in projects that are in the best interest of the water district to the best of our ability.
That's all we can ask you to
Right,
do.
that was what I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Hey, item 8, arsenic treatment facilities. I assume that's you, Jason?
That would be me. So plant 1, the media is in. Water supply staff did an amazing job of getting the media in during the hottest part of the year.
Hmm.
They are currently running the plant through its paces. We had an issue with an airline for the effluent valve at the plant. They're working on it right now as we speak. I believe that we should have it running into the system tomorrow. Which is just in time because plant 2 has failed. It coincided with the power outage that we had. We don't believe that's the actual cause, but may have exacerbated the problem. I don't know, but there's a meter error, so they're investigating as to what the exact cause of the failure is. So we're just not getting actual meter reads from it. So it's showing water going through when there's no water going through. So it's an issue. So, but plant 1 should be operational here this week, and we'll have time to investigate plant 2. And then in the cooler months, we'll be able to take care of those filters and then have both plants ready to go for next year.
So Plant 1 will give us access to two wells.
We're gonna run 11 for a little bit, and then everything runs well, we'll try running both at the same time.
So how do we adhere to the state guidelines for treatment in the event that,
If they,
because like right now, neither plant is working.
well, they're not on. If they don't work, they're not on. So, we have iron analyzers that analyze if there's any breakthrough on the filter media. And if we see anything there, that usually indicates that there's arsenic breakthrough as well, because they follow each other. So if that'll cut the throat of the plant if ever there is a high iron. So if they don't run up the way they're supposed to, they don't run. So we're never out of compliance.
Awesome. Questions, comments?
I'll make a comment. This was a great meeting, a lot of good things going on. The arsenic plant's coming online. We got through the summer, through an extraordinarily high water usage month in the last month. So as the general manager, I can take zero credit for all of the great things that are occurring because they were all done by the staff and the previous management before I got here. But it's an amazing tribute to the people that are here that work, the things that they're getting done. I sit back and I suppose I could take credit, but I really can't. And I just have to constantly point to these people and say, look at the amazing things they're doing, so it's
Every time I
fantastic to
drive
be
around
here.
town, I see these guys out there working in the middle of the day in today's weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So,
haven't had any injuries or any heat exhaustion or any.
no, but you'll hear, at the next board meeting, you'll hear about a heat prevention plan that was dropped in our lap on a short notice by the state. So we're working on it.
Uh-oh, oh, boy.
Heat,
Heat prevention.
what is it? Is it indoor?
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
added an indoor component to the overall
Yeah.
heat illness prevention plan. So there's now an indoor, and indoor does not just mean like in an office building. If you're in a tank or you're in anything that has walls in a roof, then that's indoor. So it covers a lot of stuff. So
No, I think our experience with heat in this general area makes us probably subject matter experts that could teach a lot of people how that should be done.
Probably.
And, but we're gonna check that box and get that plan created as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Great, very informative meeting. Much more detail on stuff today than a normal P and E, so. And we did run over.
We
I
did.
Well, it's those questions from my fellow.
We're gonna blame you, Stan, that's all.
That's right.
There's a lot going on and it's a
Well,
lot
do
of
we
it's really
have-
good.
Future agenda items, there's that. We're not completely done, but.
Oh, yeah. Is there any future agenda items that anybody is interested in adding? Seeing none, I'll call it adjourned at 2:40,
Thank you.
2:38.
38, I got it.